Thank you. The format for these meetings has been standard for each of the sessions. I think this is a third or fourth. And the sequence is that there will be a video presentation for general information. It is the same presentation for all of these meetings. That will be followed by public participation. If you do want to comment, there are some blue slips on the table up front here. Please fill them out and turn it in if you wish to comment. We will also have comments from the people who are listening on the internet. They will be able to call in and have their comments. And that's it. That's all there is to it. So with that, can we begin the video, please?
To our Volusia Forever program. My name is Ginger Adair, and I am the Environmental Management Director for Volusia County. And I will be taking us through a series of slides about the existing Volusia Forever program to help us understand how we should move forward with the new program. We're going to talk mostly this evening about the existing Forever program, but I want to take 1 minute to talk about the 2020 referendum. Voters were asked in November of 2020 to approve a program that included an ad valorem tax of 1/5 of a mil for 20 years. That is projected to raise $179 million over those 20 years. It permits bonding in an amount not to exceed $60 million. The purpose is to finance acquisition and improvement of environmentally sensitive water resource protection, forests and farmlands, and outdoor recreation lands. It requires full public disclosure through an annual audit. This referendum was approved by 75.6% of Volusia County voters, which is why we're here this evening to talk to the citizens about how the program will move forward. The County Council adopted a resolution number 2021-11 that established the Volusia Forever Advisory Committee. The purpose of that committee is to oversee the review of proposed acquisitions and make recommendations to the County Council, to review applications to ensure that requests meet the objectives, the criteria, the procedures, and the guidelines of the program, to periodically review program procedures, guidelines, and criteria for acquiring property, to oversee the review of those proposed acquisitions and improvements for consistency with the intent and the goals of the program, assess the program priorities and recommend a ranking of properties, make recommendations regarding participation in federal, state, and district grant programs, review and or assess the land acquisition, water resource protection, forests and farmlands, and outdoor recreation needs of the county, and make recommendations on how Volusia Forever can address them, and to recommend further evaluation of properties through resource assessments. Resolution 2021-11 establishes membership of the Forever Advisory Committee. Members serve 2 terms that expire on March 31st of odd-numbered years. If any member fails to attend 2 meetings during the calendar year, the seat is deemed vacant. The committee shall conduct an annual goal-setting workshop to outline its work program for the year, and will make an annual report to the County Council on accomplishments and review the annual program audit reports. The role of county staff. County staff are here to support the advisory committee, to provide an eligibility evaluation report for all nominated properties, to communicate with property owners, other acquisition partners, and regulatory agencies, to present committee recommendations to the County Council, and inform the committee members of County Council actions, and to negotiate acquisition contracts. The land nomination and review process. The program shall accept nominations from any governmental entity, conservation organization, corporation, or individual for any land within Volusia County. The committee or the staff may also nominate lands. Lands shall be evaluated on a first-come, first-served basis. Staff may establish a nomination cycle and deadlines. Nominations shall be submitted on an application form not to exceed 10 pages. Staff will perform an initial review based on the established criteria, including a site visit. And staff will prepare a draft property valuation report and provide it to the property owner or representative for review, and then to the committee for evaluation. Priorities for acquisition. In the current program, priorities are properties on the Water Management District 5-year acquisition plan, completion of projects begun under previous acquisition programs, additions to existing conservation lands, properties that enhance corridors and connectivity, properties of significant size to achieve meaningful conservation objectives, and properties facing imminent loss to development. The Volusia Forever program has established site ranking criteria. There are 18 primary criteria that are grouped into 6 groups. The first group is proximity and connectivity. Second is furtherance of acquisition efforts. Third is water resources. Fourth, environmentally sensitive lands. Fifth is provision of resource-based recreation lands. And sixth is management requirements. There are also 3 enhancement criteria. To be eligible for acquisition, a site must meet 10 of the 18 primary criteria. To be eligible for a conservation easement, a site must meet 5 of the criteria. I'll go through each of the site ranking criteria by group. The first group is proximity and connectivity. The criteria are, is the property functionally adjacent to existing conservation land, either a conservation easement or in public ownership, or a Volusia Forever eligible property? Will the acquisition maintain the ecological link or habitat corridor between 2 or more otherwise unconnected existing conservation lands, either conservation easements or public ownership? The second group is furtherance of acquisition efforts. Those criteria are, will the acquisition further a project begun under previous or existing governmental land acquisition programs? And based upon a preliminary assessment, for example, partnership experience, property size, location, and features, is there a reasonable expectation of matching funds from other sources to assist in the acquisition? Water resources. Does the property serve an important groundwater recharge function? Does the property contain or have frontage upon a water body, wetlands, or waterway? Does the property contain springs and or other unique geologic features? And does the property have the potential for water resource development, for example, potable water development? Environmentally sensitive lands. The criteria are, is there the potential that acquisition of the property will protect or maintain populations of any federal or state listed species, including but not limited to endangered, threatened, or species of special concern, which may typically be expected to occur on the property? Does the property contain viable acreage of 1 or more scarce, unique, or other significant upland communities? And will the acquisition protect fragile coastal resources? Does the property provide resource-based recreation lands? And the criteria is, does the property offer the potential for the establishment or enhancement of resource-based public use opportunities, including greenways, blueways, and trails? Management. Is the size and location of the property appropriate for cost-effective management? Does the property have a limited amount of exotic or invasive species? Is the pattern of existing and potential future land use of the area adjacent to the property compatible with typical land management practices? Is there appropriate access to the property? Is the percentage of water bodies or wetlands requiring restoration minimal? And is the percentage of uplands requiring restoration minimal? This is the enhancement criteria that are established. Does the property likely contain significant historical, archaeological, and or cultural resources? Does the property have the potential for providing significant opportunities for education and or scientific research? Does the acquisition of the property substantially further the conservation goals and management objectives of the Volusia Forever program? The committee review and prioritization process is as follows. At an open public meeting, the committee shall divide properties into two groups. Properties eligible for further consideration and properties that are not eligible based on established criteria. No less than twice each year, the committee will prioritize the eligible properties into two groups. Group A are those properties that receive the highest priority. They significantly further the goals of the program and may be eligible for matching funds or within the Volusia Forever project area. Group B properties are important, but not the highest priority based on the evaluation criteria. Group A properties are forwarded to County Council for authorization to proceed with the acquisition process. County Council may move a property from one group to another, but may not add a property to the ranking group that has not first been determined eligible by the committee. Once the properties are ranked onto the Group A list, there's a final acquisition process. The Group A properties shall be pursued for acquisition by completing the following: a contract with a willing seller, a boundary survey, a title and encumbrance survey, written appraisals, which consist of one appraisal for properties that are valued between $100,000 and $500,000, and two for properties with values greater than $500,000. Also completed are environmental audits, either a phase 1 or phase 2 audit as necessary, a deed or an easement, approval by the county council, and then the real estate closing. This graphic depicts the process of Volusia Forever acquisition. At the top of the page, the Volusia Forever staff solicits willing sellers, that is, those property owners who are interested in having Volusia Forever purchase their property for conservation. Next, the Volusia Forever Advisory Committee recommends lands for acquisition based on the established criteria. The county council then approves or modifies those committee recommendations. The land acquisition staff negotiates purchases, and then the land management staff manages that land in perpetuity. Also included in the existing Volusia Forever program is the small lot acquisition program. The Volusia Forever resolutions authorize the acquisition of small lots. That program supplements the county's efforts in acquiring environmentally sensitive lands in antiquated subdivisions. The lots are small with limited or no physical access or infrastructure. The goal is to assemble contiguous small lots into ecologically significant tracts. For small lots, the acquisition procedures are modified. No survey, appraisal, or environmental assessment is required, and only a limited title search and an affidavit from the owner stating there are no known pollutants is required. Through this program, Volusia Forever has spent over $1.6 million since 2001 to acquire a total of 2,519 acres. One important portion of the Volusia Forever program is the land management set aside. In the program from 2000 to 2020, 10% of the appropriated funds of the program were set aside to ensure that there is an adequate funding for public access, land management, and improvements thereon of lands purchased under Volusia Forever, as well as the 1986 referendum and other lands purchased for conservation purposes. You'll hear more about the land management set aside in the financing section of this presentation.
Good evening. I'm Tim Bailey, Parks, Recreation, and Culture Director. I'm responsible for the land management on conservation lands. Responsible for management, enhancement, and restoration of approximately 41,000 acres. Ecologically sensitive management focuses on restoration, conservation, education, and research opportunities for the wise public utilization of natural lands. Land management activities. These include habitat maintenance and restoration, which includes prescribed fire, sustainable forestry, which promotes conservation and management practices, which are environmentally, socially, and economically sustainable and which generate and maintain benefits for present and future generations. Plant and animal monitoring, which includes exotic species control, J-Watch, and Rugel's Paw Roundup. Recreation, public access, and education. These include hiking, biking, horseback riding, and primitive camping are allowed on most conservation properties. There are 46 miles of trails and 5 campsites. Hunting is allowed on the Lake George Forest and Wildlife Management Area and is administered by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission as part of a larger 35,380 acre wildlife management area. Interpretive trail signage, guided tours, educational programs, and Boy Scout projects. I'm Brandon Sosky, Chief Financial Officer for Volusia County, and I'm here to go over some of the financial aspects of the Forever program. First, I'd like to cover the revenue estimates and the current balances that are on hand from the current Volusia Forever program. For the new Volusia Forever 2020 ballot elected program, based off of current property values, we approximate that the 0.2 mils levy will collect $7.65 million for fiscal year 2022. Estimated revenues of approximately $179 million will be collected over the 20 years that this program will be in place. And that was based off of regression modeling on historical property values for the 20 years. There are several different ways that you could look at modeling property tax revenues, especially when you're forecasting over such a long period of time. However, this is a down-the-middle approach at the $179 million number. The current balances for the Forever 2000 program that are on hand by the county include a $726,711 reserve for acquisition and a $12.7 million reserve for land management. Next, I'd like to go over the land management set-aside. Currently, approximately $1.2 million is spent each year for land management expenses from the Forever program. The funds that are potentially available to cover future land management expenditures include a set-aside from the ad valorem tax, interest revenues, hunting leases, and timber sales, and the Forever 2000 fund balance. As mentioned on the previous slide, the $12.7 million reserved for land management. A potential set-aside of 10 to 15% has been discussed, and the amounts of the 10% and 15% set-aside would be $765,000 for 10%, or $1.1 million for 15%. Adding that to the interest, hunting leases, timber sales, and the fund balance would be your funding sources for land management. Now I'm going to turn to the land acquisition and financing piece of the Forever program. When the voters approved the Volusia Forever program, a $16 million bonding authority was also approved. This $60 million bond would give the county immediate cash flow, but result in annual debt service of approximately $4.2 million per year for the 20-year life of the program at an estimated average interest rate of 3.4%. In addition to limited general obligation bonds, the county also has the potential for other credit mechanisms, such as revenue bonds. However, both limited general obligation and revenue bonds will be subject to the federal government's restrictions on tax-exempt debt. As an issuer of tax-exempt debt, we have to obey what the IRS views as a potential for overburdening the tax-exempt bond market. Basically, the IRS doesn't want you to issue debt until you actually need it and have a plan for spending it. It would not be advisable to take out debt just to have the money on hand to be able to say that we are ready to purchase. Instead, purchases should be lined up ahead of time, and then the financing should be determined. This is because the county has the appropriate cash flow to make those purchases and then get the financing after the fact. The financing time frame is approximately 3 months, depending on what type of financing and the amount of the financing. But in that meantime, between the purchase and the time that the financing is acquired, we have sufficient cash flow and the potential to borrow from the land management fund balance in order to make any purchases that are recommended to be made from this program. Thank you for listening to the financing portion of the Volusia Forever program.
Okay, thank you so much for listening to that. As you can see from the priorities, this is an ongoing program. This is a renewal of a 20-year bond issue that previously existed, and I think actually Volusia's land acquisition of back in the 80s. So it's a continuity, and hopefully we haven't run out of good ideas. Some new things that were added this year were some farmlands that are in the resolution, and so we need to let our thinking or how the program may change reflect some of those thoughts. So with that, I will ask anyone who, again, if you want to speak from the public, we have blue slips. Please turn them in to Jessica, and she will call you to the podium. Yes. Donna Craig. Hello?
If I understand Referendum forever, which I took straight from the website, I have ideas that I'd like to share with you, and I don't know that what I will share notes about are exactly in line with your current regulations, but perhaps yes for the future. There's so much environmental into property that we service. To begin with, we have the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. We also have the St. John River, Halifax River, Mosquito Lagoon, Jamaica Basin, Inlet, and then there are the lakes and springs connected across the county. I found a website called Lake Link Florida that claims we have 103 lakes in Volusia County. 103. Think about that. In my mind, those sources of water are more than just desire. Essential to the environmentally sensitive resources that need protection and that provide recreational opportunities to residents and visitors. Beyond their need, we have for clean drinking water. These resources are beautiful and are exactly the things that make Volusia unique. For our purposes here, my focus is on our coastline, although I know there's need for on the west side of the county as well. But the two examples that have caught my attention are Untitled Park and Untitled Park. When Untitled Park was being developed, the typical naysayers called out of the dark and became quite vocal about how this park was merely acted as a magnet for drug dealers and other nefarious characters. They predicted this project would be a failure and a money pit. But as we now know, this is not what happened at all. Both of these facilities are extremely successful. Their parking lots are constantly full, and in my mind, that's an indication that we need more of these facilities. They are a draw to both locals and visitors, particularly now that driving on the beach is so severely restricted and often parking facilities provided. We don't need more high-rise condos. We need more access points like these parks for those of us who simply want to go to the beach. There are numerous oceanfront lots sitting vacant that I think should become the property of the residents of Volusia County. With some minor improvements making them more environmentally friendly, these facilities could be developed using Tom Rennick and Andy Romano Parks models, and a lot of the huffing and chuffing about beach access will go away. So that's my suggestion.
Thank you. Thank you. I think both of those are eco projects, and we'll certainly share your comments with our committee. Melissa Lammers.
Sorry about that. My name is Melissa Lammers. I live in Ormond by the Sea. I'm a member of the Volusia Forever Alliance, which grew out of the steering committee for Volusia Forever at the Environmental Council of Volusia and Flagler counties. For more than a year, we worked to get Volusia Forever on the 2020 ballot to build public awareness about the program and the great good it's done for our county over the past 20 years. And once reauthorized by more than 75% of voters, we pooled our knowledge and experience to draft suggestions on how it can keep its promise for the next 20. Volusia Forever is an award-winning model land conservation program that every citizen of Volusia County should feel proud of. So I want to thank all of you on the advisory committee for accepting the awesome responsibility of serving, most especially for the work that you'll do to set the rules that will ensure the program's future integrity and effectiveness in protecting environmentally important lands. At least 5 different county councils followed the recommendations of the previous committee, and there will likely be 5 more councils before this program ends. So what you do over the next couple of months is incredibly consequential for the future of Volusia Forever. It's in your hands now. And we have a wonderful template to work from. I'll address just 3 points, as you already have copies of the Alliance's complete recommendations. First and foremost, to rank properties for potential acquisition, I ask you to please continue to use objective, science-based environmental values and standards consistent with what was on the ballot, and to keep the potential to attract matching funds as a criterion for A-list ranking. I ask you to please make completion of the conservation corridor a top priority for several reasons. Before it's too late, we need to conserve large tracts of land that encompass entire ecosystems and include enough territory to support apex predators that aren't tolerated in residential areas. The Florida State Legislature just allocated more money to conservation than at any time over the past decade or more, including $300 million specifically for the completion of corridors and rural and agricultural lands. That means matching funds will be available to us, but there's competition. Volusia County wasn't the only one to pass a land conservation measure last year. To take advantage of available funding, I ask you to consult with the county CFO on a reasonable bond amount or other financing measures as soon as possible. We need only about 17,000 more acres to complete the corridor. I ask you to please make sure that Volusia Forever continues to be insulated from political pressure and influence. It should be explicit that council members not engage in direct negotiations with landowners and not be able to move properties from the B to A list without the recommendation of staff and your committee to do so. Likewise, council members who have an interest in a property under consideration should declare their conflict and abstain from the vote. Again, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for stepping up to serve. I'm sure you will be excellent stewards of the renewed Volusia Forever and for what I would consider the sacred trust that we citizens have placed in you. Thank you. Thank
Big John, South Holly Hill. I didn't come, I know Butler's over my right shoulder. We're not getting along too good right now, but doesn't have anything to do with forever. Or echo. But anyway, Mary Ann, I just wanted to get, who's staffing you? Like Carmen Hall staffs Echo, so who's in charge of you guys? Do you have a name?
Clay, Don, and Ginger. Everyone's Clay, Irving, Don,
Clay or
and Ginger are there.
Okay, good. Is he behind me?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, can I get, you have to do it because they're too important. Would you send me a copy of the thing? you just did, so I can digest it.
Yes, sir.
The only real question I got, Mary Ann, is you got a lot of money in the fund balance. And they said it's all got to go to maintenance. So someday, maybe we should look at how many millions of dollars it takes to maintain this system. And I'm not against the system, and I'm not against maintenance, but just, I forgot the number now, but I think it's like 13 or 17 million. It's like a lot of money, sort of a lot of money, not a lot of government money, but a lot of money. And it just seems like that's a little much for maintenance. Just a thought.
What would you think about an alternative?
Well, I see, I think that, of course, maybe you guys should have a course, because most of you probably don't know how to maintain whatever it is we maintain. But maybe we need a little course and why it costs so much money to maintain it. You know, just a thought. But I believe the fund balance is a hefty sum of money. Everybody thinks we don't have any fund balance, but we do. Thank you very much.
Hello. My name is Stephanie. I was 31 years of Tennessee. I'm with, I live on the very sensitive, very beautiful, Mocha of former golf course. And practically everybody in Volusia County has either known somebody who lives on Smokehouse Golf Course, or they played on the Smokehouse Golf Course, sometime. So we were here to kind of take a look to see what the grant process is, and I guess I have a question like this about digesting this fully. I'm assuming we can get it, the materials on the website to look at it about the nomination process. And is there any kind of a liaison or someone that's helpful in the nomination process or the grant process from Volusia Forever? If we have questions, because we're kind of getting really organized about this particular property. It's a high and dry, beautiful Coquina Ridge, but it's been left to Mother Nature for quite some time now, for about 2 years, and it's turned into kind of fantastic, wildlife preserve in some ways. But when I look at the first set of development criteria, I see it's facing development, probably unnecessary in the city of Long Beach, because we have plenty of homes right now. We have many more getting ready to be built, and it's in an area that was not designed for homes, to be in. So I guess my question, and I kind of just wanted to introduce myself to you, that feel for what's available. I know that there are funds out there that are available to restore green space. It's beautiful. I think I like the small parcel thing to just show, because many small parcels really can turn into something very green, and great, preserve the whole thing. But I appreciate you all being here and opening to the public to answer the questions people have. I think right now there are a lot of questions. I've been thinking about what David just said. Sometimes when there are things that are needed to be purchased now, and we have kind of fiduciary duty to set aside money to maintain things sometime in the future, but there are things that are in jeopardy really now. I think the question is whether that amount of money for maintenance, shouldn't be going into not an emergency, but into what you do, to save something now instead of, saving for maintenance in the future. But, I'm assuming that's a duty that you all have to balance. But my time limit, I guess there's a time limit here, and I'm certainly always over the time limit. But I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and thank you very much.
Thank you. please go online and there's a lot of information available there. You can see what the history of the hurricane has been.
This is super helpful to be useful for and use for a person who doesn't.
Thank you for coming.
We have no one else in person. If anyone online would like to speak, please use the raise your hand function.
Hello, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ashley Dufy. And I really have a question. I think I still need to digest the great presentation you guys provided. It was a lot of information. My biggest question is, when will the applications to nominate land become available?
Good evening, I'm Ginger Adair, Environmental Management Director. The funds for the new Liberty program don't become available until the fiscal year that begins in October. So the intent is that the committee will do its work and make recommendations to the council about the criteria and the program, with projects potentially being open for nomination beginning in the fiscal year, so October.
Any other online questions?
Ashley, did you have anything else? Derek, online, did you have something?
Hi, can you hear me okay? Yes. Oh, great, thank you. Yeah, just wanted to thank all of the listeners and people who came out to speak and give their opinion. I also want to just say for this area of the county in Ormond Beach, I really hope we can save some land in the Tomoka River Basin. That area, of course, is a outstanding Florida water body that's also impaired and has been for some time. And yeah, just really hope we can save some land around here. I also just had a quick comment about, I guess, what we're doing tomorrow, but maybe if the rest of the advisory committee was going to just cover that briefly. That's kind of a question I had. I was kind of the understanding that it was not necessarily like one of our official meetings. It was just us going kind of to visit the ECHO people, but I just kind of learned today that it is, it's more than that apparently. So I just want to clarify that with the staff and make sure everybody kind of knows it's not a big deal. But yeah, I wasn't sure there was everyone was kind of ready, and I know there's expressed some reservations about having that joint meeting, but I guess it's going on, and it's obviously tomorrow. So just wanted to make sure we discuss that and make the public aware of what's going to happen tomorrow. Thank you.
Mary Ann, thank you.
Sure, before we start moving past. And then we're going to have some other discussion about.
Yeah, I was thinking we would maybe just close out the public comments and then I would go through the board.
Okay, so I can look at it. Okay. Okay, however, directed is done.
Sure.
So I'm a representative for District 4, and I just had some thoughts on what's happened and where we're going. So I just prepared a statement that I'm just going to read. We wouldn't all be here tonight if it weren't for the taxpayers who voted to tax themselves for land conservation, understanding our green spaces matter. Their voices didn't end last November 3rd when they voted to renew these programs. I'm thankful for these listening sessions and the Volusia County residents who support the land conservation.
Living in a pro-development state and county, I'm not afraid to say out loud that our county and our District 4 have been the recipient of some bad choices in the way of developments. I often hear about property owner rights and how they are protected and defended. In my opinion, there is no point to zonings because rezonings are endless and the public has figured this out by now. This is why they voted for Volusia Forever by 75% and Volusia Echo by 73%. I've yet to understand why organizations felt the need to take developer campaign funds to market taxpayer-funded programs. Why didn't you believe in the programs yourselves? Thank you to the public for showing such strong support. I fully support the Volusia Conservation Corridor being completed. And thank you to those before us who had the vision for this area and the steadfast to see it through to where we are now. Hopefully we can add land to this critical area. I'm genuinely concerned about the Farmington area. Has anyone seen Deep Creek recently? It isn't deep anymore in the areas that I've seen. I believe more can be done in that area, even with huge development moving in. I'm really wanting to hear discussion on farmland and thrilled that we have someone who owns a farm on the committee. The small lot acquisition program can make a difference in this area as well, from what I've seen. It was also brought up Spruce Creek and the Tomoka River being impaired waterways. Spruce Creek is listed on the Florida Forever list as being nearly completed. I'm asking if more can be done in this area, and Derek Lamontagne can surely speak to this since it's in his district. I'm looking forward to his input after these listening sessions when we have our discussion, especially pertaining to Door Sleeper Preserve as well. I have the impression that everyone has given up on the Tomoka River. It isn't on any list that I see, and until Derek brought it up, I never hear it mentioned anywhere. I'm asking, is there a reason why it's not brought up? The Tomoka River is worthy. The scenic highways are something that are never discussed anywhere and are extremely misunderstood. Because a road is designated a scenic or heritage byway doesn't mean it's protected. This is a huge misconception. Rezonings can happen just as easily in these areas as anywhere else. I believe that those that live in the River of Lakes Heritage Corridor are experiencing a situation right now where their own elected officials didn't listen to the residents concerning a rural area. I have watched history be torn down on the Halifax Heritage Byway and forests be cut to the ground on the Oregon Scenic Loop and Trail. I want to point out to everyone that the Volusia Conservation Corridor started from one parcel of land. It wasn't connected to anything. The vision created the corridor. When you talk about connectivity, circumstances and times change. There should be discussion of not only completing certain areas, but visions of new are now required. The public standing up for these byways and certain areas are telling us this. This committee cannot and should not presume previous reasons for doing things are always relevant to where we are today and where we are going. Yes, I heard it's the first meeting, in-person meeting, that a program could be changed to be unrecognizable from what was voted on. Well, land conservation was voted on loud and clear, and what is happening in our county today is pertinent to the current day program. When you have developments approved over a 20-year period without uniformity and buffers, wetland destruction, hundreds of new septic systems approved each year, and failing infrastructure, the plan must be adapted. When conservation itself doesn't change, the circumstances most definitely have. Thank you to the previous 20 years of volunteers who served on this committee. I'm sure you all were dealt your own circumstances, and all conservation land achieved is much appreciated. I'm hoping for a committee that advocates for a present-day version of the program for current needs, countywide, representing taxpayer voices. Thank you all for your time.
Any other public comment? No, ma'am. Comments from the committee? Again, I think we should get anything else. Any questions? Steve? Okay, I don't want to retract Derek from entertain, it is about the meeting tomorrow. Tomorrow, we are, this committee is meeting jointly with the ECHO committee in the land, 1:30. The ECHO committee meeting a bit earlier, the meeting is going to be in the historic courthouse. That meeting is pursuant to a request from the ECHO committee for Volusia to join with them to discuss whether or not there are opportunities and synergies for the future of both programs. To see whether or not there are things that can be done in conjunction or jointly, or at least in cooperation for a better outcome for both sets of groups. And that's what it is. We don't expect it will be more than an opening discussion. It's certainly worth hearing. Again, this is the time when we are hearing new thoughts. We are here to talk about exactly what should be the goals for the next 20 years. Yes, there is continuity, but this is a new period, and much has changed in 20 years. And I expect much will change before we are done. And it's in another stage right now in terms of what's going on. And so, unless there are any further comments, I will thank you all for joining us this evening. I invite you to please, there will be another meeting next week in Deltona. So that will be in Deltona. Again, if you can't be present, you are welcome to listen online and participate through the online comments. If there's no further business, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Okay.